It was a stunning revelation for Megadeth fans when rumors began circulating that Dave Mustaine had been handed a life sentence. Known for his laid-back demeanor and humorous moments on stage, Mustaine found himself entangled in serious legal issues, a twist that no one saw coming. For years, Megadeth had entertained audiences with their powerful music and rock and roll lifestyle. But now, Mustaine's successful music career has taken an unexpected and troubling turn. What could have happened to lead to such a severe consequence? Stick with us as we uncover the shocking events that led to this drastic change in Dave Mustaine's life and the details of this incredible case. Rumors surrounding the conviction, shocking details exposed. Where there has been a whirlwind of rumors surrounding Dave Mustaine's conviction, and as the details started to surface, they shocked fans and the general public alike. For years, Mustaine had been one of the most iconic figures in heavy metal, known for his fiery personality, impressive musical talent, and the turbulent history of his career. However, as the news of his conviction broke, a darker side of his life started to unfold. People who had worked with him, bandmates and industry insiders, began sharing stories that painted a picture of a man far removed from the public image of a rock star. Rumors swirled about his behavior behind the scenes, his struggles with substance abuse, and the toxic atmosphere within his bands. His colleagues, some of whom had been close to him for decades, began to speak out, revealing how the pressure of his fame, combined with personal demons, had led to destructive patterns in his life. One of the most shocking aspects was the claim that Mustaine's behavior had created a toxic working environment, not just in his personal life but within his professional relationships. Stories surfaced from former band members showing that things hadn't always been as smooth as fans might have imagined. Rumors of explosive arguments, ego clashes, and manipulative tendencies began to emerge, with some alleging that Mustaine had a history of undermining those closest to him. Those who had been with him through his rise to fame and subsequent challenges shared that Mustaine's quest for control had at times alienated his inner circle. It became clear that while Mustaine had always been known for his intense passion for music, this passion often took a toll on his relationships. In addition to the personal drama, details of financial mismanagement and strained business practices came to light. People started questioning how his money had been managed throughout his career, especially with accusations of unpaid band members and questionable financial dealings. The rumors only intensified when old colleagues began to discuss how Mustaine allegedly used his status to manipulate situations to his advantage, leaving others feeling betrayed and taken for granted. As more of these shocking stories started to surface, it was clear that the man behind the music was more complicated and troubled than anyone had realized. Fans and the public began to wonder just how much of the rock star persona had been a carefully crafted image, and how much was a facade masking a much darker reality. Specific allegations against him. The allegations against Dave Mustaine are not only deeply troubling, but also shatter the image of the legendary musician that so many fans had held on to for years. At first, the accusations were shocking, but as the details began to surface, it became clear that there was more to Mustaine's story than anyone had anticipated. For a man who had spent decades in the public eye as the frontman of Megadeth, the accusations weren't just about personal mistakes or momentary lapses in judgment. They pointed to a pattern of behavior that many of his closest colleagues had been hesitant to discuss for years. One of the most serious allegations came from former band members and staff, who claimed that Mustaine had created a toxic and often abusive environment within his bands. Reports emerged of Mustaine's explosive temper, which had reportedly caused tension and rifts within Megadeth and other projects he had been a part of. Multiple people came forward to share stories of verbal abuse and power struggles that left bandmates and crew members feeling undermined and demoralized. Allegedly, Mustaine's temper would often flare over small mistakes, and his outbursts were described as being both unprofessional and incredibly damaging to the people working around him. Several former members of Megadeth, who had previously been tight-lipped about the inner workings of the band, spoke candidly about the emotional toll of working with Mustaine, explaining how his unpredictable behavior could make anyone feel as though they were walking on eggshells. This explosive temper, however, was just the surface of the allegations. There were whispers for years about Mustaine's struggles with substance abuse. While many of his fans were aware of his past issues with drugs and alcohol, new details suggested that Mustaine's substance abuse problems had far more impact on his career and relationships than anyone had known. Former bandmates spoke about how Mustaine would often show up to rehearsals or recording sessions under the influence, affecting his ability to perform and sometimes even jeopardizing important shows. In some of the more shocking accounts, it was said that Mustaine's substance abuse worsened as the pressure of keeping up with the demands of being a rock star took its toll. Allegations of Mustaine being unable to function without the assistance of alcohol or drugs became a topic of discussion, with former colleagues pointing to times when his addiction had led to serious issues both on and off stage. Along with these personal struggles, there were financial allegations that added another layer to the controversy. As a member of one of the most successful metal bands in history, Mustaine had earned a fortune over the years. But accusations began to surface that Mustaine had not been transparent with bandmates about the band's finances. Some former members of Megadeth claimed that Mustaine had used his position to exploit the trust of his fellow musicians. Allegedly, bandmates had not been paid their fair share of royalties or performance fees, with some claiming that Mustaine had siphoned money for himself while leaving his colleagues in the dark. These accusations were not only damaging to Mustaine's reputation as a band leader, but also caused some to question his integrity as a businessman. Further complicating the situation were claims that Mustaine had made a series of questionable decisions regarding the band's finances. There were rumors that Mustaine had invested money in projects that were unrelated to the band's interests, and some even claimed that he had mismanaged funds in ways that negatively impacted the group's long-term financial stability. It was alleged that Mustaine's personal interests sometimes took precedence over the band's well-being, with some bandmates feeling as though they were being left behind financially in favor of Mustaine's personal ventures. This led to growing tensions within the band, with some members reportedly feeling resentful over the financial decisions that had been made without their input. While these personal and financial allegations were disturbing, the most damning accusations against Mustaine came from a mix of former employees and industry insiders, who claimed that Mustaine had manipulated fans and followers for personal gain. As the leader of a massive following of fans, many of whom were deeply devoted to his music and his persona, Mustaine had a great deal of influence. Some of the more shocking allegations revolved around how Mustaine allegedly took advantage of this influence to manipulate fans into making large financial donations, often under the guise of supporting his career or personal projects. Fans who had attended concerts or bought records were often encouraged to make larger contributions, sometimes being told that their money would help fund new albums or charity projects, only to find out later that the funds had been misused or spent on personal luxuries. These allegations also extended to how Mustaine interacted with his fans in a more personal sense. Former employees of Mustaine's management team revealed stories of how fans who were desperate to get closer to their idol were sometimes manipulated into buying expensive merchandise, tickets to private events, or even private lessons with Mustaine himself. These private lessons, which were supposed to be a way for Mustaine to give back to his fans, were sometimes reported to be more about Mustaine promoting himself and his financial interests. Several fans came forward to tell their stories of being promised opportunities for one-on-one interaction with Mustaine, only to find that they were simply being sold into another money-making scheme. To make matters worse, it became apparent that Mustaine had also been involved in questionable business dealings that went beyond the music industry. Reports suggested that Mustaine had invested in real estate ventures, and in some cases he had been involved in high-risk investments that resulted in financial losses. There were rumors of properties being bought and sold with little regard for the band's overall finances, leaving some band members questioning whether Mustaine was more focused on his personal portfolio than on Megadeth's well-being. Allegedly, Mustaine used his influence and resources to push his own personal agenda, often disregarding the band's interests in the process. Adding to the complexity of the allegations was the consistent theme of Mustaine's sense of entitlement. Many of those who had worked with him over the years claimed that Mustaine's behavior was often rooted in a need for control and a belief that he was untouchable. Former colleagues spoke of an arrogance that, at times, bordered on narcissism. Mustaine, they said, believed that his success in the music industry gave him the right to make decisions without consulting others, whether it was about finances, band dynamics, or personal issues. As the allegations mounted, it became clear that Mustaine's legacy was at risk. While many of his fans were still loyal to him, others began to question whether they had been misled by the man they had once looked up to. His persona as a hard-edged, rebellious musician had always been part of his appeal, but the darker side of his life seemed to be more than just a series of personal mistakes. It seemed to represent a pattern of behavior that had left behind a trail of broken relationships, financial mismanagement, and exploitation of those around him. For Mustaine, the allegations were not just a PR nightmare. They were a devastating blow to his reputation and career. As more details came to light, it was clear that the legendary musician had far more to answer for than anyone had initially expected. The question now was, how would Mustaine respond to these allegations, and what would the future hold for him and the empire he had built? What he may face. The allegations against Dave Mustaine have reached a point where the stakes couldn't be higher. With everything that's come to light, it's no longer just a matter of damaged reputations or hurt feelings. It's about real, tangible consequences that could drastically affect his life. For someone who has spent decades at the top of the heavy metal world, building an empire and a legacy that many would envy, this is the moment where everything could come crashing down. The most immediate and concerning consequence for Mustaine is the legal ramifications of the accusations against him. The charges that have been brought against him are not small in nature. Allegations of financial fraud, abuse of power, substance abuse, and manipulation of fans and colleagues for personal gain all point to a situation that, if proven true, could lead to serious criminal charges. If these allegations hold up in court, Mustaine could be looking at a lengthy prison sentence. Fraud, especially on the scale that has been hinted at, is a crime that the legal system doesn't take lightly. If he is convicted of financial crimes, such as embezzlement, tax evasion, or misappropriating funds for personal gain, he could be facing decades behind bars. Some of the charges could also involve money laundering, which only adds more weight to the potential prison sentence. In some cases, convictions of this nature can result in sentences that extend well beyond 20 years, sometimes even life, in extreme situations. While it's difficult to say exactly how long Mustaine could be sentenced to without knowing the full extent of the evidence, it's clear that this is not something that will be taken lightly. Aside from the prison time, Mustaine could also face hefty fines and restitution payments. The government might seek to recover the money that was allegedly taken from the fans, band members, and business partners, and that could lead to the seizure of assets. The financial penalties alone could wipe out whatever fortune Mustaine has accumulated over his career, including his real estate, music royalties, and personal investments. This would be a huge blow, especially given the nature of his wealth, which, as rumors have suggested, may be tied up in various assets and investments. The damage to his finances may be even worse than the time he could serve in prison. Beyond the legal consequences, Mustaine's reputation is another casualty in all of this. For a man who has built his life and career on his image as the leader of Megadeth, this scandal threatens to erase everything he's worked for. The fans who once looked up to him now have doubts about his integrity, his character, and his motivations. The rock star image he built, someone who stood as a symbol of rebellion, power, and success, has now been tainted by these allegations. Fans who supported him throughout his career are left reeling, trying to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the person being portrayed in the allegations. Many are questioning whether their loyalty was misplaced, whether they were just part of a larger scheme to manipulate them for Mustaine's personal gain. The disillusionment of his fan base could lead to a mass exodus of support, and that's something that could affect Mustaine's ability to continue performing or even to make a living from his music. The future of Megadeth is also in question. Mustaine has long been the face and the driving force behind the band, but now, with all of these allegations on the table, it's unclear whether Megadeth will even be able to continue. The other members of the band, who have witnessed these events unfold firsthand, might feel compelled to distance themselves from Mustaine. Some might decide to leave the band, or, at the very least, make it clear that they do not want to be associated with the ongoing scandal. For Megadeth fans, it would be a bitter pill to swallow, knowing that the band could potentially be dissolved, or, even worse, tarnished beyond repair. The fallout from this could also extend beyond just his career. Mustaine's personal relationships, which have already been strained due to some of the allegations, could face even more challenges moving forward. Family members, friends, and former colleagues may find themselves caught in the crossfire, and some could choose to sever ties with him entirely. Trust, once broken, can be hard to rebuild, and Mustaine could find himself isolated both personally and professionally. The impact on his personal life, particularly his mental and emotional state, could also be devastating. For someone who has spent much of his life in the public eye, the pressure and scrutiny that comes with such serious allegations may be overwhelming. His mental health could deteriorate under the weight of it all, especially as he faces the reality of losing everything he worked so hard to build. The stress of ongoing legal battles, media attention, and the fallout from his past actions could take a serious toll on Mustaine's well-being. Furthermore, Mustaine could face significant challenges in terms of rebuilding his public image, if that is even possible. The damage that has been done may be too extensive to repair, and no matter how much time passes, the stain of these allegations may forever be associated with his name. Even if Mustaine manages to avoid the most extreme legal consequences, the public's perception of him could be irreparably damaged. In the best-case scenario, Mustaine might be able to settle the legal matters without a lengthy prison sentence, though that still remains uncertain. If he is able to avoid significant prison time, he may attempt to rebuild his life and career, focusing on music or other ventures outside of the spotlight. But the road to redemption is not an easy one, and there are no guarantees that Mustaine will ever fully recover from the scandal. Ultimately, what Dave Mustaine faces now is a future filled with immense challenges. Whether it's legal penalties, financial loss, the collapse of his music career, or the personal toll of the scandal, there is no way to predict exactly what will happen next. What is clear is that Mustaine's life will never be the same, and how he responds to these allegations will determine what remains of his legacy, both as a musician and as a person. What's next for him? As the dust settles around the allegations and the reality of what Dave Mustaine is facing begins to hit, the question on everyone's mind is, what's next for him? The future seems uncertain, and the road ahead for the once iconic frontman of Megadeth is anything but clear. After decades of building an empire both musically and financially, Mustaine is now at a crossroads, and how he navigates the aftermath of the scandal will define the rest of his life. One of the first things that's likely to happen is that Mustaine will be forced to confront the legal battles that have been set in motion. The charges against him are severe, and with so many eyes on the case, it's almost impossible for him to avoid the legal system's scrutiny. The ongoing investigations, court cases, and potential trial will dominate his life for the foreseeable future. Whether he's convicted or not, the legal battles alone will be a huge distraction, consuming time, energy, and resources. His reputation is already on the line, but this could be the tipping point that determines whether he has any chance of salvaging his career or life as he knows it. If Mustaine ends up being convicted, the next phase will be all about navigating the consequences. Depending on the severity of the sentence, he could face a long prison term. While it's hard to say exactly how long he could be locked away, given the charges against him, it's not unrealistic to think he could be behind bars for years, even decades. Prison would effectively end his career in any meaningful sense, and his future would be spent trying to rebuild from rock bottom. If he were to face such an outcome, it would be a complete reversal of the life he had known for so many years. The man who once stood at the top of the heavy metal world would find himself confined and disconnected from the very thing that defined him, music. However, even if he avoids the harshest of sentences, Mustaine's life is going to change drastically. The impact on his career could be even worse than any prison time. The allegations alone have damaged his reputation beyond repair for many. Once a respected figure in the rock world, Mustaine's name has now become synonymous with scandal, financial mismanagement, and manipulation. He may find that, even if he's cleared of legal charges, he will struggle to regain his place in the public eye. Megadeth fans who have supported him for decades may start to question their loyalty. It will be a long road for Mustaine to rebuild that trust, and many might simply walk away, unable to reconcile the man they thought they knew with the person being exposed by the allegations. The future of Megadeth itself is now in jeopardy. Mustaine has always been the driving force behind the band, both creatively and financially. If he's unable to continue, whether due to legal troubles or personal issues, Megadeth could be left in a difficult position. The other members of the band may decide to carry on, but without Mustaine at the helm, it's unclear whether the band could maintain its success or even survive. Some fans might still support the remaining members, but many will always associate Megadeth with Mustaine. If the band does break up or go on hiatus, it would mark the end of an era for one of heavy metal's most storied bands. Mustaine may also find himself facing financial ruin. If the allegations about financial fraud and mismanagement are proven true, he could be forced to pay back a significant amount of money in restitution. This could involve liquidating assets, including his real estate properties, music royalties, and possibly even his famous guitar collection. The court could also impose heavy fines on Mustaine, further draining any remaining wealth. For someone who has spent decades building a fortune, it could be devastating to see that all disappear in a matter of months or years. Financial ruin, coupled with the loss of his career and reputation, would leave him with little to hold on to. There is, however, a potential path for Mustaine to rebuild his life, but it would require a tremendous amount of effort and a willingness to face his past. In the best-case scenario, he could use his experience to turn things around and make amends. This would require full accountability for his actions, transparency with his fans, and a genuine effort to regain trust. If he genuinely wants to rehabilitate his image, he could begin by making amends with those he has hurt, including former bandmates, fans, and industry professionals. He could seek therapy to address the personal issues that have led to his fall from grace.